Republicanism. Republicanism promotes a system of government that is non-hereditary and opposes monarchism. It values civic virtue, political participation, and the rule of law. Republicanism emphasizes self-governance, which means that people have ability to regulate themselves without an external authority. Conservatism. Conservatism comes from the word conserve, which means protect. Conservatism tries to protect traditional values. In Western culture, conservatives promote the nuclear family, organized religion, the military, property rights, and the rule of law. Progressivism. Progressivism believes that society can be improved by destroying oppressive traditions and making advancements in science, technology, and social organization. It doesn't necessarily oppose conservatism, as progressives can still choose to keep certain traditions. Liberalism. Liberalism is one of the dominant ideologies in the Western world. It wants individual liberty, equal opportunity for everyone, and government power limited by a constitution. It also likes multi-party democratic elections, free market economy, a set of fundamental rights written in the Constitution, separating a government into different branches, the separation of religious and state power, privacy rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religion. Moderatism. Moderatism likes to stay within the Overton window, which contains the policies that are acceptable to mainstream people. Moderates don't have strong political opinions and don't really care, but they still know a little bit about politics. Unlike apoliticism. Capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system based on the private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. Capitalism always needs four things to function: private property, a free market, competition, and division of labor. Socialism. There are many types of socialism, which makes this an umbrella term. Socialism wants worker-owned means of production, heavily supports worker co-ops, self-management, economic planning, and workplace democracy. Socialism in the modern age advocates workers' self-management, high taxation on the wealthy, or even nationalization over key parts of industry. Social ownership is one of its key values. Syndicalism. Syndicalism is a child of socialism. It promotes worker empowerment through unionization and decentralized revolutionary organizations called syndicates. Syndicates advance workers' demands using direct action like strikes and protests. Syndicalists believe that this grassroots approach is the most effective way to challenge capitalism and achieve a socialist society. In a post-capitalist system, syndicalism envisions a decentralized government where a Congress or federation of syndicates represents various unions and economic sectors. Corporatism. Corporatism advocates for the organization of society into corporate groups such as labor unions, business associations, professional guilds, or other interest groups. Instead of letting people act as individuals, corporatism lets these groups work with the state to shape policy and resolve conflicts. Corporatism can be authoritarian, in which case it promotes a single official language and suppresses minority cultures. Or it can be democratic, in which case it allows minority cultures to represent themselves in negotiations with the state. Corporatism does not refer to a political system dominated by large business interests. That would be a corporatocracy. Libertarianism. Libertarianism is all about maximizing individual freedom and minimizing state power. It believes that people should be free to make their own economic, social, and personal choices, as long as they don't interfere with the rights of others. Libertarians believe in some of the principles of liberalism, like life, liberty, and equality before the law, but unlike liberalism, libertarianism dislikes taxes on private property and other forms of government intervention. Separatism. Separatism, also commonly known as secessionism, wants to establish a nation, country, sovereign state, or government that is separate from an already existing nation. Communism. Communism is centered on common ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange that allocates products in society based on need. A communist society doesn't have private property and social classes, or even money and the state itself. Feminism. Feminism is a range of socio-political movements and ideologies that aim to define and establish the political, economic, personal, and social equality of the sexes. Feminism believes that modern societies are patriarchal, which means they prioritize the male point of view, and that women are treated unjustly in these societies. Efforts to change this include fighting against gender stereotypes and improving educational, professional, and interpersonal opportunities for women. Anarchism. Anarchism is an ideology that advocates for a society without rulers or constituted authority, with a focus on the notion of freedom. It advocates for the replacement of the state with stateless societies and voluntary free associations. Environmentalism. Environmentalism is sometimes called green politics. It represents a range of ideologies which fall under the belief that nature should be a significant factor in deciding public policy, be it increasing recycling, decreasing CO2 emissions, or stopping water pollution, and so on. Populism. Populism focuses on appealing to a large amount of people and their values, believing that what the masses want must be what the masses get. It can take on many forms, because its only requirement is that it emphasizes the idea of the common people in opposition to a perceived elite. Often, populism is associated with democracies due to its reliance on popular support. It is also often linked with anti-establishment and anti-political sentiment. Imperialism. Imperialism believes in maintaining and extending power over foreign nations using both hard power, military and economic power, and soft power, diplomatic power, and cultural imperialism. Imperialism was once very popular, but has decreased in popularity over the years. Imperialism supports war as a tool to allow powerful nations to rule over weaker ones. Imperialism is accused of being oppressive, but it claims that colonized people benefit from the help of their powerful colonizer and being part of a large empire. Egalitarianism. Egalitarianism promotes the concept of social equality, making it a priority for all people. Its central idea is that all humans are equal in fundamental worth. All citizens of an egalitarian state must be accorded equal rights and receive equal treatment under the law. Transhumanism. Transhumanism supports the use of emerging technologies to enhance humanity and overcome its physical limitations. Transhumanism advocates developing and making widely available new technologies that can upgrade the human mind and body and greatly enhance humanity's longevity, cognition, and well-being. Communitarianism. Communitarianism emphasizes the connection between the individual and the community. It believes that each person is molded by their community relationships. Communitarianism is often contrasted with individualism because it supports policies that prioritize the stability of the community over the freedom of the individual. Authoritarianism. Authoritarianism promotes the use of strong central power to preserve the existing political system. It reduces democracy, separation of government branches, civil liberties, and the rule of law. Authoritarian states can be ruled by a party, the military, or a single person, and political opponents are often exiled or imprisoned. Fascism. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, and ultranationalist political ideology. As a far-right ideology, it believes in societal purity, seeing society as being made up of one ethnicity and under threat from diversity. It is authoritarian, which means it has a dictatorial leader and centralized power. It is militaristic, believing that the state must maintain a strong military and use it aggressively to expand national interests. Fascism is ultranationalist, promoting an extreme form of nationalism which tries to maintain control over other nations using violent force. Fascism believes that the perceived interest of the nation and race must dominate over any rights and interests of the individual, and it forcibly suppresses opposition. Nazism. Nazism is a form of fascism that followed pseudoscientific theories centered around the concept of an Aryan master race. Nazism believed that this race was superior to all other races which it considered inferior and subhuman. Aryans were identified by their tallness, white skin, blue eyes, narrow and straight noses, blonde hair, and being of German descent. According to Nazi beliefs, these Aryans were supposed to unite and expand into new lands under the Lebensraum doctrine. This doctrine, which means living space, stated that Germany needed Lebensraum to survive and justified expansion into Central and Eastern Europe by extermination or enslavement of Untermensch populations. The term Untermensch, which literally means subhuman, was used by Nazis against Jews, Roma, and Slavs. It was also applied to the physically and mentally disabled, homosexuals, and political dissidents. Nazis followed policies of eugenics, which centered around selective breeding of Aryan traits. Under these policies, those considered Untermensch were subject to involuntary sterilization and extermination, being sent to concentration camps and killed. I'll be making more videos like this. Subscribe to see them.